happened?
The faint scent of expensive perfume and stale champagne clung to her jacket like a cheap ghost. Alara had stumbled in an hour ago, flushed and giggling from the annual team victory party, kicking off her heels by the door and slurring something about a big win before collapsing into bed. I was doing what I always did, cleaning up the wake of her whirlwind life. I picked up the silk jacket she tossed over a dining chair, ready to hang it, but felt the telltale crinkle of paper in the pocket, probably a receipt or a business card. I reached inside, my fingers closing around a thin strip of glossy photo paper. I pulled it out. The world stopped. It was a photo booth strip, 4 small squares that told a story more brutal than any novel I'd ever read. Frame 1, Alara, my wife of 10 years, her head thrown back in laughter, her eyes sparkling with a joy I hadn't seen directed at me in years. Beside her, my brother, Liam. His arm was draped casually around her shoulders, a wide, familiar grin on his face. Innocent enough, I suppose, a colleague and her brother-in-law celebrating. Frame 2, her head was now on his shoulder, her expression softer, more intimate. His grin was gone, replaced by a fond smile as he looked down at her, his cheek almost touching her hair. A prickle of unease crawled up my spine. Frame 3, they were looking at each other now. The party lights were a blur behind them, but their faces were in sharp, devastating focus. There was no mistaking the look in their eyes. It was the look of a shared secret, a private world that didn't include me. Alara was biting her lower lip, a gesture I knew all too well. Liam's hand had moved from her shoulder to her cheek, his thumb stroking her skin. Frame 4, they were kissing, not a playful peck, a deep, passionate, all-consuming kiss. Her eyes were closed, her hand tangled in his hair. His hand was still on her face, holding her as if she were the most precious thing in the universe. In the background, the neon sign of the bar was visible just enough to burn the name into my memory. It wasn't the venue her company had booked for the party. This was somewhere else, a secret detour, a secret life. I sank into the chair, the photo strip trembling in my hand. The silence of the house was deafening, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator and the frantic, hammering beat of my own heart. Upstairs, my wife, the love of my life, was sleeping peacefully in our bed. In his apartment across town, my brother, my only sibling, my best friend since birth, was probably smiling in his sleep, and I was here, in the ruins of my life, holding the evidence of their demolition. They hadn't just betrayed me, they had collaborated. They had taken my 2 most sacred relationships and twisted them into something monstrous. The air in my lungs turned to poison. I felt a guttural sound escape my throat, a mix of a sob and a scream that I choked back before it could wake Alara or our 7-year-old daughter Maya sleeping down the hall. They thought I was the quiet one, the stable one, the supportive husband who managed the home front so Alara could conquer the corporate world, the dependable brother Liam could always count on. They thought I was predictable, safe, weak. As I sat there in the pre-dawn gloom, staring at the 4 little pictures that had just detonated my entire existence, a new feeling began to bubble up through the shock and the pain. It was cold and clear and sharp as glass. It was rage. And in that moment, I made a promise to myself. They would not get away with this. They thought they knew me. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. My first instinct was primal, a burning desire to storm upstairs, to shake Alara awake and thrust the photo strip in her face, to scream until my throat was raw. I wanted to see the panic in her eyes, the pathetic scramble for a lie that could not be fabricated. I wanted to call Liam and listen to the confident swagger in his voice crumble as I described the 4 frames of his treachery. But I didn't. Some new, cold part of my brain took over, a part that had been dormant for a decade, the part of me that used to be a strategist, a chess player, before I'd sublimated my own ambitions to support hers. This wasn't a crime of passion to be met with an explosion of emotion. This was a conspiracy. It was premeditated, calculated, and executed with a breathtaking arrogance that assumed I was too stupid or too placid to ever uncover it. An emotional outburst was what they'd expect. They would weather the storm of my anger, offer tearful, hollow apologies, and manipulate the situation until I was the one who seemed unreasonable. They would call me crazy, jealous, insecure. No, I would not give them that satisfaction. I carefully placed the photo strip on the table, my hand steady now. I walked into the kitchen and poured a glass of water, the simple act feeling monumental. I thought back to her arrival. She'd been giddy, stumbling through the door with a story about landing the massive Ericsson account, a project she and Liam had been working on exclusively for months. "We did it, Ben. Liam and I actually did it," she'd slurred, hugging me with an enthusiasm that felt performative, even then. She'd praised my brother's genius, her partner in crime. Liam was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. We make such a good team. Yes, I thought, staring into the dark kitchen. A very good team. I walked back to the dining room and picked up the strip, sliding it carefully into the small envelope that held our daughter's school photos. I tucked it into the back of my wallet, a cold, hard reminder of the new reality. Then, I went about my routine. I finished cleaning the kitchen, loaded the dishwasher, and set the coffee maker for the morning. I was acting on autopilot, but my mind was a whirlwind. How long? How many late nights at the office? How many team dinners? How many times had I sat across from my own brother, sharing a beer, while he was sleeping with my wife? The questions were a swarm of angry hornets in my head. A profound sense of foolishness washed over me. I had been their enabler, the foundation upon which they built their secret world. I handled every school pickup, every doctor's appointment, every single detail of our domestic lives, so Alara could be free to climb the corporate ladder, and I'd encouraged her to hire Liam, my own brother, when he was struggling to find a job after college. "He's smart, Ben," she had said. "He just needs a chance. I can mentor him." I had been so proud, so happy that the two people I loved most would be working together, supporting each other. Now, the memory felt like a cruel joke. They hadn't just built a career together, they'd built a life that excluded and mocked me. The supportive husband, the loving brother. I was the court jester in their secret kingdom, and I hadn't even known it. As the first hint of dawn began to gray the sky, I knew one thing with absolute certainty: a simple confrontation was not enough. A messy divorce was not enough. They didn't deserve an easy exit. They deserved to be exposed. They had built their success, both professional and personal, on a foundation of lies. I would be the one to rip that foundation out from under them, and I would make sure the whole world was watching when their castle came crashing down. 3 months earlier, I was the happiest man I knew. I remember the morning with painful clarity. It was a Tuesday. I was packing Alara's lunch, something I'd done every workday for the past 6 years. She was a creature of habit: turkey and avocado on whole wheat, an apple, a small bag of almonds. As I placed it in her briefcase, she came up behind me and wrapped her arms around my waist, resting her chin on my shoulder. "You're the best, you know that?" she murmured, kissing my cheek. "I couldn't do any of this without you." I smiled, turning to face her. She was beautiful, dressed in a sharp navy blue power suit, her dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. She radiated confidence, an energy that could command a boardroom. "I know," I said, only half joking. "Someone has to hold down the fort." Her smile was brilliant. "And you're the best fort holder in the world." We had a rhythm, a partnership that I thought was unbreakable. I had willingly stepped back from my own career in software development when Maya was born. Alara's job in marketing was taking off, her trajectory a steep, glittering ascent. It made sense for one of us to have a more flexible schedule, and I loved being the one to take Maya to the park, to build Lego castles that spanned the entire living room floor. I didn't resent her success, I reveled in it. Her victories were my victories, our victories. That same week, Liam came over for our traditional Thursday night basketball game. We'd been doing it since we were teenagers, a ritual that had survived college, my marriage, and his series of failed career starts. He was late, rushing in with an apology. "Sorry, man. Alara had me working on the Ericsson pitch. It's insane." He was energized, talking a mile a minute about market demographics and brand synergy, using jargon he'd learned from my wife. "She's a genius, Ben," he said, toweling off after our game. "The way her mind works is just incredible. I'm learning so much." I felt a swell of pride. "I told you she was the best. You just have to keep up." He laughed, a sound that now echoes with deceit in my memory. "Oh, I'm keeping up. were perfectly in sync. That was the word they both used. Team, sync, partnership. They were building a narrative, a smokescreen of professional collaboration that I had not only believed but had actively championed. I was their biggest fan. My parents adored Alara, saw her as the ambitious daughter they'd never had. They were proud of the life we'd built, proud of the man I had become, a modern husband happy to support his wife's career. They were especially proud that I had helped Liam find his footing. "It's wonderful how you all support each other," my mom had said during Sunday dinner just a month ago. "Alara, Liam, you two at work, and Ben, making sure everything at home is perfect. It's a real family effort." The irony was a physical weight in my chest. We were a family effort, just not in the way anyone thought. I was the infrastructure, the logistical support, the unpaid, unsuspecting assistant to their affair, and, as I would later discover, to a much larger deception. The signs were there, of course. They always are, in retrospect. Little red flags that seem like harmless quirks at the moment. There was the weekend strategy retreat for their department 2 months back. It was mandatory, Alara had said, her eyes filled with genuine-looking regret. "I'm so sorry to miss Maya's soccer game, honey, but Erickson is our white whale. We have to land it." Liam had to go too, of course. I remember thinking it was great for him, a chance to be seen as a key player. I'd packed them both snacks for the road. I had waved them off from our driveway, the two of them in Alara's sleek company car, looking for all the world like a power couple heading off to conquer a new market. They came back glowing with success, armed with anecdotes about brainstorming sessions that went late into the night and a new level of camaraderie. Then there were the phone calls. They'd always be talking on the phone, even when he wasn't at the office. I'd walk into the room and Alara would quickly end the call with a breezy, "Okay, talk tomorrow, Liam." If I asked, it was always about work, just hashing out the final details for the presentation, she'd say, not looking up from her laptop. Liam had a great idea about the Q3 projections. His name was a constant presence in our home, a third party in our marriage that I had welcomed with open arms. I had dismissed the whispers of doubt in my own mind as insecurity. I was the stay-at-home dad. She was the jet-setting executive. Of course, she had a life and a language at work that I wasn't a part of. To be suspicious would make me that guy, the jealous, controlling husband, and I was determined not to be that guy. I was the cool husband, the supportive husband, the stupid husband. The first full day after my discovery was an exercise in supreme self-control. Alara woke up with a groan, nursing a hangover. I brought her coffee and aspirin, just like I always did. "You're a lifesaver," she mumbled, her eyes still closed. I had to physically restrain myself from throwing the hot coffee in her face. "Rough night?" I asked, my voice a marvel of calm. "The best," she said, a slow smile spreading across her face. "We celebrated hard. Liam was the hero of the hour. He came up with the tagline that sealed the deal with Erickson." I just nodded, a silent scream building in my chest. The ease with which she lied was sociopathic. Her entire world was a performance, and I was her most captive audience. While she showered, I started my real work. For years I had managed our home network, our shared calendars, our cloud storage. I was the family CTO. It was a role they both took for granted, a role I would now use to dismantle them. I started with the shared calendar. The Erickson strategy retreat was blocked out, as expected, but I dug deeper into the archived data. I found the original booking confirmation from the hotel. It wasn't for 2 separate rooms, as she had claimed on her expense report. It was for a single king suite. The name on the reservation was hers, but the notes section had a special request, adjoining room for Liam Parker if available. They hadn't even bothered to get separate rooms at first. The arrogance was staggering. I moved on to our credit card statements. The company card she used for expenses was clean, meticulously aligned with her official story. But our personal card, the one I managed but rarely scrutinized, told a different story. There were dozens of charges from bars and restaurants I'd never heard of, all near Liam's apartment. There were Uber receipts for trips from her office to his neighborhood, on nights she was supposedly stuck in a meeting. Then I found it. A charge from 3 weeks ago. The Velvet Curtain Lounge. I Googled it. A dimly lit, intimate cocktail bar with a vintage photo booth in the back. the same neon sign I'd seen in the background of the fourth frame. My heart hammered against my ribs. This wasn't a one-time mistake at a party. This was a pattern, a routine. This was their life. Before we continue, please write in the comment which country you are watching this video. We love knowing where our global family is tuning in from. And if this is your first time on this channel, please subscribe. Your support helps us bring even more epic revenge tales of life. Enjoy listening. The personal betrayal was a gaping wound, but a new, more chilling suspicion began to form. The Ericsson account. It was the biggest deal her company had landed in a decade. Alara and Liam were the stars of the show. Their careers were about to go stratospheric, but something felt off. The timeline, the sudden breakthrough after months of struggle, it all seemed too neat. My developer instincts kicked in. I thought about the files on our shared home server. Alara was meticulous about backing up her work. She called it her redundancy plan. I found the folder labeled Ericsson Pitch. It was massive, filled with hundreds of files. Most were password protected, but Alara was lazy with passwords. She used the same 2 or 3 for everything, variations of our anniversary and Maya's birthday. The irony was nauseating. The third password I tried worked. The folder opened, and what I found made the affair feel like a minor transgression. There were 2 main project folders inside. One was named Ericsson, Official. The other was named Axios, Internal. Axios was their main competitor, the other company that had been vying for the Ericsson account. I opened the Axios folder. Inside were complete copies of their entire pitch, market research, strategy documents, financial models, even creative mock-ups. It was a treasure trove of corporate espionage. But how? Then I saw the subfolder, Source, Files, and inside that a single name, Mark Renshaw. Mark was a senior strategist at Axios. He was also, I knew from Liam, a gambling addict who was deeply in debt. Liam had mentioned it casually months ago after a poker night. Poor guy's in deep, he'd said with a shake of his head. Owes some scary people a lot of money. It wasn't gossip. It was reconnaissance. I started cross-referencing dates. The file transfers from the Axios folder corresponded with large, unexplained cash withdrawals from our personal savings account, thousands of dollars at a time. Alara had told me it was for early investment in a high-risk tech stock. She'd made it sound like she was being shrewd with our money. She was paying off a source. They hadn't won the Ericsson account with brilliance. They had stolen it. They had cheated their way to the top, and my brother's role wasn't just as a junior partner. He was the asset, the one who could get close to a desperate man and exploit his weakness. Alara was the strategist, but Liam was the weapon. My mind reeled. This was bigger than a broken heart. This was criminal, fraud, conspiracy. It was the kind of thing that didn't just end careers. It ended in courtrooms. The photo strip in my wallet suddenly felt insignificant. It was the emotional core of the betrayal, the part that had shattered me personally, but the data on this hard drive. This was the key to their public destruction. This was the leverage that would ensure they couldn't spin their way out of this. I spent the rest of the day meticulously copying every file, every email, every bank statement. I created 3 separate backups on encrypted thumb drives, one for me, one for a lawyer, and one for a place no one would ever think to look. As I worked, my grief began to morph into something else. A cold, methodical fury. They hadn't just cheated on me. They had used my trust, my home, my money, and my brother to commit a crime. My passivity, my supportive nature, had been the perfect cover. I was the good, unsuspecting husband holding down the fort while they plotted their coup. The annual company awards gala was in 2 weeks. It was the biggest night of the year for Alara's firm, a black tie affair celebrating their major achievements. The centerpiece of the evening was set to be the celebration of the Ericsson account. Alara and Liam were scheduled to receive the prestigious Vanguard Award for their work. They would be on stage, in front of the entire company, including the CEO and the board of directors. The perfect stage for a grand finale. I logged into Alara's email again, Maya's birthday, and found the invitation. I RSVP'd for myself, our daughter, and for my parents. The whole family should be there to celebrate this incredible moment, I wrote in the notes. Then, I began to plan. I reached out to an old college friend, David, who now ran a high-end AV company that handled major corporate events. His company wasn't contracted for the gala, but he knew the technical director who was. I told him a sanitized version of the story, that I wanted to surprise my wife with a tribute video for her big win. He was a romantic and loved the idea. He made a call. For a small consulting fee, the tech director was willing to let my AV expert have access to the system before the show to load a surprise video file. The pieces were beginning to fall into place. The next 2 weeks were the most difficult performance of my life. I played the part of the proud, supportive husband to perfection. I feigned excitement over the gala, helped Alara choose a stunning evening gown, and listened with what appeared to be rapt attention as she and Liam rehearsed their acceptance speech over speakerphone. "We have to thank Ben, of course," Alara said one evening, winking at me from across the kitchen island while Liam was on the phone. "We couldn't have done it without him." "Damn right," Liam's voice crackled through the phone. To Ben, the silent partner. They laughed, and I forced a smile that felt like broken glass in my mouth. The dramatic irony was so thick I could barely breathe. They were walking into a canyon, and I was the one echoing back their triumphant calls, leading them deeper in. I took my parents out to dinner and told them about the big award. They were ecstatic. "Our boy, a superstar." My father beamed at the thought of Liam. "And Alara, what a powerhouse. You picked a winner, son." I just nodded, the food tasteless in my mouth. "You have to be there," I said. "It's the biggest night of their lives." The day of the gala arrived. A palpable buzz of excitement filled our house. Alara was a whirlwind of hairspray and nervous energy. I helped her with the clasp of her diamond necklace, my fingers brushing against the skin of the same neck Liam had kissed in the photo booth. For a fleeting second, I saw a flicker of something in her eyes, in the mirror guilt. Or maybe I was just projecting. "You okay, honey?" she asked, her voice soft. "You seem quiet, just overwhelmed with pride," I said, my voice perfectly even. "I'm so happy for you, for both of you." We arrived at the grand ballroom of the city's most luxurious hotel. It was a sea of tuxedos and gowns. The company had spared no expense. A string quartet played in the corner, and champagne flowed freely. My parents were already at our table, beaming. Liam joined them, looking sharp in his tux, his arm around his date for the evening, a flimsy alibi I saw right through. He clapped me on the back. "Can you believe this, bro? Us, at a table with the CEO." I smiled. "You earned it." We made it through the dinner, the endless speeches, the parade of minor awards. My heart was a steady, cold drum in my chest. I excused myself from the table, telling them I needed to check on Maya, who I'd left in the hotel's childcare suite. Instead, I went to the AV booth at the back of the ballroom. David's contact, a lanky tech guy named Kevin, gave me a thumbs up. The file was loaded, queued, and ready to go. "You sure about this, man?" Kevin asked, chewing on a wad of gum. "This is going to be one hell of a surprise." "It's what she deserves," I said, and walked back to my seat. Finally, the moment arrived. The CEO, a stately man named Mr. Davenport, took the stage. And now, for the Vanguard Award, celebrating the team that demonstrated unparalleled innovation and drive, securing the landmark Ericsson account, please welcome to the stage Alara Mills and Liam Parker. The room erupted in applause. Alara and Liam ascended the stage, bathed in a spotlight, looking like royalty. They accepted the heavy crystal award, their faces aglow with triumph. Alara stepped up to the microphone. Thank you so much," she began, her voice thick with emotion. "There are so many people to thank, but most of all, I have to thank my partner on this project, a true visionary, Liam Parker." Liam stepped forward. "I couldn't have done it without Alara's leadership, but we both owe a huge debt of gratitude to her husband and my brother Ben. His support was the foundation for all of this." They smiled at me. The whole room turned to look at our table. I stood up, as if in acknowledgement, and gave a slight nod. "And now," Alara said, her smile dazzling, "I believe the company has prepared a short video celebrating our team's journey." She turned expectantly to the massive screens flanking the stage. This was it. The screens, which were supposed to play a generic corporate montage of stock photos and buzzwords, flickered. For a split second, there was blackness, a collective intake of breath in the ballroom. Then, the first image appeared, blown up to 20 feet high. Frame 1, Alara and Liam, laughing. Confused murmurs rippled through the audience. Then, frame 2, her head on his shoulder. The murmurs grew louder. Frame 3, the intimate secret look between them, a gasp from my mother at our table. Alara and Liam had frozen on stage, their smiles vanishing, their faces turning to masks of horror. And then, frame 4, the kiss, full, passionate, and utterly damning. The ballroom fell into a stunned, absolute silence, broken only by the sound of a champagne flute shattering on the floor. Mr. Davenport stared at the screen, then at his 2-star employees, his face a thundercloud. But I wasn't finished. The photo strip faded, replaced by the first of the documents. An email from Liam to Alara. Subject, Axios Intel. Mark is on board, it read. Says their final pitch is on the attached drive. It'll cost us the tank. The screen cycled to the next exhibit, a copy of our bank statement showing a $10,000 cash withdrawal on the same date. Then came the Axios strategy documents, the doctored reports, the internal emails detailing their conspiracy to defraud the company. Each slide was a nail in their coffin. I stood up from my table and walked calmly towards the stage. I took the microphone from the stunned MC's hand. My voice, when I spoke, was clear and steady, amplified throughout the silent hall. "Good evening," I said. "My name is Ben Parker. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the silent partner, the foundation." I looked directly at Alara and Liam, who were now pale as ghosts, trapped in the spotlight. "I want to congratulate my wife and my brother on their incredible performance. It truly was a masterclass in deception." I paused, letting the words hang in the air. Unfortunately for them, their professional fraud is as unoriginal as their personal betrayal. A complete, unredacted copy of all the evidence you see on the screen, along with much more, was delivered to Mr. Davenport's office this afternoon, and a second copy is currently on its way to the Securities and Exchange Commission. Chaos erupted. People were standing, shouting, pointing. My mother was sobbing into my father's shoulder, his face a mask of stone-cold fury as he stared at his youngest son. Mr. Davenport was striding onto the stage, his security detail right behind him. I placed the microphone back on the stand. I walked over to my wife and my brother, who were now being flanked by security. I leaned in close to Alara, close enough for her to see the absolute absence of pain in my eyes, replaced only by a chilling calm. "You were right," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the din. "We made a good team." Then I turned, walked off the stage, collected my daughter, and left them to the wreckage. 6 months later, I was sitting on the floor of a new apartment, surrounded by moving boxes and the scent of fresh paint. The space was smaller than our old house, but it was brighter, filled with sunlight, and it was entirely mine. The fallout from the gala had been swift and brutal. Alara and Liam were fired the next day. The company launched an internal investigation that quickly became a criminal one. They were both facing a raft of federal charges for corporate espionage and wire fraud. Their stolen Vanguard award was rescinded, and the Ericsson account was now the subject of a massive lawsuit from Axios. My divorce from Alara was finalized in record time. Faced with the undeniable evidence of both infidelity and criminal activity, her lawyer advised her not to contest anything. I was granted full custody of Maya, the house, and a significant portion of our assets, given that I could prove most of them were funded by her fraudulent earnings. She was left with nothing but her legal bills and her shame. My parents had been my rock. They were heartbroken, but their support for me was absolute. My father hadn't spoken a single word to Liam since that night. My brother had tried to call me dozens of times, leaving rambling, pathetic voicemails filled with excuses and pleas for forgiveness. I never listened to them. I blocked his number and excised him from my life as cleanly as a surgeon removing a tumor. One afternoon, Maya came home from school with a drawing. It was of the two of us, standing in front of our new apartment building, holding hands. The sun was a giant smiling circle in the sky. "It's our new castle, Daddy," she said. I had worried about the effect of the divorce on her, but with Alara so consumed by her legal troubles, Maya's world had become calmer, more stable. Our life was simpler now. We had breakfast together every morning. I walked her to school, and in the evenings we'd read books or build even more elaborate Lego castles. The frantic, ambitious energy that Alara had brought into our home was gone, replaced by a quiet peace. I had started working again, taking on freelance software development projects. My old skills came back quickly, and I found I had missed the challenge, the clean logic of coding. I had forgotten who I was outside of my role as supportive husband. I was rediscovering myself, one line of code at a time. The real victory wasn't the public humiliation of Alara and Liam, as satisfying as that had been. The real victory was this quiet, sunlit apartment. It was my daughter's happy drawing. It was the rediscovered sense of self-worth that I had allowed to atrophy for so long. They had intended to leave me with nothing. Instead, they had given me back my life. 3 years after the gala, the skyline of the city looked different to me. It no longer represented a world I was on the outside of, a corporate machine my wife was conquering. It now represented a world of opportunity, a world I was actively a part of. My small freelance business had grown into a boutique software firm with 10 employees. We specialized in creating custom logistics software for small businesses, helping the little guys compete with the giants. I had found a niche, and I was good at it. I was more successful, on my own terms, than I had ever dreamed of being. Maya was a thriving 10-year-old, smart and funny and compassionate. She saw her mother once a month for a supervised visit. Alara had avoided prison time by cooperating with the feds and testifying against her co-conspirators at Axios, but her sentence had included 3 years of probation and a lifetime ban from working in her industry. She was working as a clerk at a bookstore, a shadow of the powerhouse she had once been. We rarely spoke, and when we did, it was only about Maya. Liam had been less fortunate. He was sentenced to 18 months in a low-security federal prison. He had gotten out a year ago. I heard from my parents that he was living in another state, working a manual labor job, trying to stay sober. My father had finally spoken to him, a single strained phone call, but the relationship was shattered beyond repair. I was in a coffee shop, waiting for a client, when I saw him, Mark Renshaw, the man from Axios who had sold them the information. He looked older, tired. He saw me, and for a moment, his eyes widened with panic. He started to turn away, but I called his name. He walked over to my table, his shoulders slumped. "Ben," he said, his voice quiet, "I don't expect you to talk to me. I wanted to say I'm sorry. For my part in it all." I looked at him, a man whose weakness had been the catalyst for so much destruction, but I didn't feel anger. I felt a strange sense of pity. "You got used," I said, "just like I did. Did you ever get your life back on track?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah. I lost my job, my reputation, but I got help, joined a program. I'm clean now, working a smaller job, but it's honest. My family stuck by me. That's all that matters." We talked for a few more minutes, two men from opposite sides of a corporate crime, now just two fathers trying to do the right thing. As he left, he turned back. "You know, what you did at that gala, it was legendary, but the realest thing you did was what came after. You just built a better life. That's the best revenge." He was right. The grand, public explosion of their world had been necessary, a cauterizing of a gangrenous wound, but it wasn't the victory. The victory was in the quiet moments, helping Maya with her math homework, the camaraderie with my employees, the simple satisfaction of building something honest and successful with my own 2 hands. I had learned the hardest way possible that the foundation of a life can't be another person. It has to be yourself. They had thought my kindness was weakness, my support a given. They had built their empire on my quiet compliance. They never imagined that the silent partner would one day find his voice and burn their kingdom to the ground. And in the ashes, I didn't find bitterness or regret. I found myself, and that was a victory worth celebrating.